As President-elect Donald Trump continues announcing the men and women he's tapped to join his incoming administration, there's a lot of talk and anticipation of the changes that he'll be ushering in. And among the ideas drawing a lot of attention is the Defense Department, which has been hurt by the woke and divisive policies of the Biden administration. So what changes might we see over the next 4 years, and how can we better bolster our military? Joining us now to talk about that is retired Army Major General Joe Arbuckle. He is vice chair of the board of directors at STARS, that stand together against racism and radicalism in the services. General Arbuckle, good to have you with us on Washington Watch today.
Well, thank you, Congressman. It's a real pleasure to be here with you.
I'm on the Armed Services Committee, and we have dealt with this in the past two National Defense Authorization Acts, trying to strip the money out of the DEI programs that have had a very severe impact on the recruitment and retention in our military. Why did that happen to begin with?
Well, in my opinion, it's all based on political agendas. We can kind of trace this all the way back to Clinton and then up until the Obama administration, when it was really put on steroids. And most recently, of course, with the Biden administration, they've been pushing this political agenda called DEI into our military at full force. And that's where we are today. And its consequences are disastrous. You just mentioned recruitment and retention, but it goes further than that into the ranks. And if you would like, I can give you my opinion on why DEI is so devastating to our military.
You know, only 9% of Americans' young people right now have any interest in joining the military. Several of the branches of our military have missed their recruitment goals. The Army is up a bit this year, but we have veterans and grandparents telling young people right now, do not bother joining the military. That's a pretty sad state of affairs that we're in.
Yes, it is indeed. And, you know, there's about 70% of the serving active force that is there because they have some kind of a family history and tradition about joining the military. And that's been longstanding. But what's happening right now is family members and others are telling their friends and other associates basically not to join the military because it's gone woke. And people don't join the military for that purpose. They join to serve their country, as we know, serve their nation, and do the best they can in that capacity. So that's one devastating impact of wokeness and DEI.
Yeah, the enemy doesn't really care what your pronoun is. Let's talk about the president's pick to lead the Defense Department, Fox News host Pete Hegseth. What's your read on him?
I think he's a great choice. He comes with a tremendous warrior background. He's young, he's energetic, he understands very deeply the disastrous effects that DEI is having on our military. In fact, he's written a book about that, as you well know, The War on Warriors. I think he'll do a great job. I certainly hope he's confirmed.
There's already pushback, though, from folks you don't really hear from inside the Pentagon, but word is trickling out that, look, there are going to be some people quite upset with what he has in store of how to reform the Department of Defense.
Yes, and reform has got to come from the top, as you know, and that will involve a change of leadership, certainly, and that's been discussed. But the signal has to be pushed down through the ranks from the very top, actually coming from the president through the Secretary of Defense, that wokeness is out, and we're going to return to our fundamentals, and that is warfighting readiness preparation to do the job that the military is tasked to do, and that's to fight and win our nation's wars. And to get rid of all this extraneous stuff that goes with DEI and wokeness that is distracting from that fundamental principle mission. And I'm sure that Pete Hegseth will keep that right in his sight picture, and that will motivate everything he does, and that is warfighting readiness.
Well, a big part of it is funding for the military. When you consider the past two budgets have only been a 1% increase through the National Defense Authorization Act and later through the appropriations process, that's really, when you consider Biden's inflation, that's really a cut to our military. When we're trying to keep up with the pacing threat from communist China and these other adversaries to the United States of America, how can we continue to defend ourselves in a world that's really on fire?
Well, coming back to your budget question, as you know very well from being on the HASC, it's not only the amount of money, it's how that money is spent. So two things have to happen there, in my opinion. Yes, the total amount of the defense budget needs to increase. And just off the top, I would say somewhere around 5% of the GDP. And then it's got to be applied in the right places. We need acquisition reform drastically so that we can speed up that process and get the items into the hands of our troops that are needed quickly. And it's been very sluggish, as you know, for many, many years. So that's one thing. And then again, coming back to the warfighting focus is absolutely essential throughout the entire Department of Defense.
China is one of the biggest aggressors. They have their tentacles in everything we do in America, whether it's through cheap computers or Wi-Fi systems or drones. Their Belt and Road Initiative has really overtaken the world. A lot of people don't even know what that is, but they are making investments in infrastructure, ports, seaports, airports, roads and bridges in Central America, South America, Africa. What type of threat could that become to the United States of America with that type of investments in these countries?
Well, it's a huge threat, obviously. And it's not just China. As you know, they're linking arms for the first time now with Russia, Iran, North Korea. So the threat basically is combined among all those. And it's interesting that a few years ago, a couple of senior Chinese colonels wrote a book called Complete Warfare, basically against the United States. And they advertise everything that they're going to do to bring down our country. And that's exactly what they've been doing. It's unrestricted warfare, to correct the title. So they're marching down that road. They're dedicating everything they have toward that objective. And we need to stand up against them and recognize that they are our principal peer adversary, along with their allies, as I just mentioned.
Let's talk a little bit back on the DEI subject. What policies do you think will likely be on the chopping block in addition to DEI and the CRT programs that are currently in the DoD right now?
Well, along with that, we need to get back. What we need to do, Congressman, is take DEI out and substitute it with what we've had throughout our military until DEI came along, and that is equal opportunity for all, along with meritocracy. And by that, I mean providing an equal chance for every service member to excel and be all they can be, and then select those that are best for every position. Now, part of that we're facing today is racial preferences, for example, in admission to our academies, our service academies. So the standards are basically lowered based upon the racial preferences. We need to get away, to answer your question, from any special preference based upon an identity group, whether it be based on race, gender, sexual orientation, or whatever it may be, and get back strictly to meritocracy and equal opportunity.
Who do you think might be leaving when it comes to the Pentagon or the military? We've heard about this warrior board. It'll be reviewing 3- and 4-star officers. What do you think about that idea?
Well, first of all, let me say that President Trump has the right and probably an obligation to select people that are loyal to him and to his agenda. And as you know, there's an overwhelming support for his agenda in the election. So he must put people into the highest level positions that will do that for him. Now, this loyalty board, we have to be careful about that. You know, the left is using the term purge. That's really not what it will be or should be. It has to be something that's done very, very carefully, fairly, objectively, and provide due process for anybody that's involved in that so that it has credibility, not only in reality, but also in perception, so it sends the right signal. So yes, he needs to get people in place at the top level that are going to support him, but that's not enough. He's got to send a signal down through the ranks, right down to the lowest level, that DEI and wokeness is out. And as I said before, it's going to be replaced with warfighting and readiness, equal opportunity, and meritocracy.
President-elect Trump may be rolling back the Biden executive order that lifted a ban on people with gender dysphoria, trans people in the military. Critics say that's discriminatory, but those who serve do have to be fit for service, and that includes mental fitness. Are you in favor of basically doing away with trans persons in the military, basically telling them they're not fit to be in the military.
Well, we have to have standards, to your point. And there is no right to serve in the military. Nobody has that right. Standards drive performance. And if the trans community cannot meet those standards, and if they're not prepared to deploy physically or mentally because of that, then they should not be serving. That's the bottom line. It's all about standards.
Secretary of Defense testified before the before our committee, the Armed Services Committee last year. We were talking about diversity, and I said, hey, if we go across right now, across the Potomac, and we look down at those white tombstones at Arlington National Cemetery, would you be able to tell me the skin color or the gender or the pronoun of that person? And he said no. And I said, that's because our diversity is not our strength. Our strength is from the unity of our common purpose. Do you agree in that?
Oh, absolutely. In STARS, that's been one of our themes. Unity has always been our strength, and it's reflected in the battle cry, the motto of one team, one fight, where everybody has a common focus on the mission and the purpose of what's going on. And also their loyalty, as you're pointing out right now, is not to a skin color or gender or whatever. The loyalty is to the team, not to self. It's all about selfless service. And finally, they have to have total trust and confidence in each other. That's one team, one fight. And skin color, gender, sexual orientation has nothing to do with that.
What other hopes do you have for this administration when it comes to our military?
Well, I'm hoping, well, I know it will be successful in removing DEI out of the military. And with that, restoring a lot of morale that I think is suffering through the ranks right now because the mission focus has been taken away. So I see the morale coming up. I see recruitment coming up. I see retention coming up. And our combat effectiveness is a bottom line. That's a measure of why we're there. I see that increasing also with a change of leadership and a change of focus. That's exactly what we need.
For those who were kicked out of the military because they would not take the COVID vaccine in a past National Defense Authorization Act, we righted that, but we did not give them back pay because we couldn't find the money to do that. I think we should be giving those men and women who were basically fired from the military and said, thanks, but no thanks. Unless you take the jab, you aren't going to get to stay in the military. Should we be giving them back pay?
Absolutely. And it's more than that, Congressman. There are a lot of other remedies we need to be pursuing for those that were harmed by that vaccine mandate. And there's more than one category. Those that were kicked out and don't want to come back, those that were kicked out and do want to come back, and there haven't been many of those, as you probably know. And those that remain on active duty that put in requests for religious exemptions, they need to be dealt with in terms of remedies and what was done with them in terms of their official military personnel records, denial of promotions, denial of schooling, and so forth. And finally, veterans that are on the street that may be physically harmed from the effects of the vaccine, that needs to be dealt with also. So there's about 4 categories there that we need to take a hard look at. And we have information on that in STARS we can get to if you'd like to see that kind of a detail, and I'd appreciate you doing that.
I would like to see that, sir. I was honored to be on the Quality of Life panel under General Bacon, who also serves on the House Armed Services Committee. And we got through a 20% pay increase that was long, well overdue, and probably not as much as you should be for the lower enlisted, improved childcare, improved housing. Why is it important that we consider the welfare of especially our lower enlisted when it comes to the military?
Simply because they struggle the most due to their economic situation. Their pay is the lowest. Their housing is a problem, as you pointed out. No, by the way, thanks for doing that. You all in the HASC have done a great job in supporting our military at the lower levels over the pay increases. They also have, I think, the most difficult family situations for those that are married when it comes to deployments. The spouse is gone. Typically, the wife is left behind with a child or two, trying to deal with that, trying to make ends meet, pay for transportation, food and all that. So they really need special attention at the lower rank levels. And that's great that you do it.
You know, families are so important, and sometimes we just think about the individual soldier, but these are families who their spouses and children want to have a nice place to live. We're not building the Taj Mahal at Fort Leonard Wood. We're building a decent place to have other friends over and enjoy life.
A fundamental tenet in the military is take care of the troops and their families, and the health, morale, and welfare, as we like to term it, is extremely important. That's something every leader has to put at the absolute top of their priorities. And historically, that has been done in the military. But with this shifting toward the wokeness and so forth, I'm not so certain that's been happening like it should.
Well, retired Army Major General Joe Arbuckle, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate it.